裏切りたくありません。
During the Japanese occupation of China in 1930, the Japanese people founded a death sect called Hadesh by kidnapping children from various countries to be trained to become invincible killers. Not only that, Hadesh also intended to destroy China by hard means. However, after World War II, Hadesh in China was disbanded by the Japanese government because its existence was not in line with Japan's political strategy in China at that time. Even the leader of Hadesh was thrown into prison. 12 years later, the leader of Hadesh named Amano was visited by the prince of the Japanese Empire and asked Amano to rebuild the Hadesh temple in China to help the Japanese military, because it turned out that they could not occupy China by relying only on military strength. The next day, Amano, who accepted the request, then went to his loyal student Kurashige Daisuke, who was also the best Hadesh fighter. Kurashige was very happy with the arrival of his teacher. Kurashige was also ordered to gather the Hadesh fights that had been scattered since Hadesh was disbanded. Amano also ordered Kurashige to rebuild the Hadesh temple that had been extinct for 12 years. Here it is known that Hadesh's best student named Huzi, who has held the title of King Vajra, has now moved to the Shaolin temple. King Vajra is a nickname for someone who is invincible. In carrying out his duties, Kurashige will be accompanied by Amano's daughter named Echo. As a journalist based in China, she will tell all Chinese people about the greatness of Hadesh. Turning to Huzi, who is currently a student at the Shaolin temple, he was taught several moves from Master Shaolin, but until now Huzi has not been able to master one move, namely the 17-second death move. After that we are diverted to a group of American soldiers who are currently prisoners of war because they have sided with the Chinese government and fought the American government. They did this in order to end the attack on China that never ended. But now they are being taken by Kurashige to the Hadesh temple. Arriving at the HDS temple, they were forced to sign an agreement as members of Hadesh, but they refused. As a result, they were given a choice: be killed or fight to the death. Then they were all put in prison. At the same time, a Hadesh fighter from the Hell sect named Tetsumaku Rai came to a prisoner who had won consecutive fights, and then he would fight Tetsumaku. This is where Tetsumaku tried to put mental pressure on the man, but the man laughed and belittled Tetsumaku until there was a little commotion there. The next day, Kurashige met a prisoner named Bill and his friends who turned out to be members of Hadesh. Kurashige asked them to just surrender and not have to fight by rejoining as members of Hadesh, but they refused outright and preferred to fight again. Meanwhile, Huzi was called by the Shaolin master and ordered to end Hadesh's cruelty, and not only that, the master wanted Huzi to show his 17-second death move that he had taught. And when the master saw that Huzi had mastered it, the master finally felt satisfied and happy and then died. Long story short, when the master's funeral was taking place, Huzi received news that his younger brother Kong had been kidnapped by Hadesh as an older brother at the Shaolin Temple School. Wuzi intended to save his younger brother and also to end Hadesh's crimes. Inside the Hadesh temple, the fight began where Bill and his men had to fight to defend themselves. That's when some of the kidnapped children had arrived there, including Kong, because he was afraid Kong intended to run away, but Kurashige held him, and back to Huzi, who had just arrived at the Hadesh temple. He was warmly welcomed by his old friend, none other than Kurashige. Qurayshij invited Huzi to rejoin Hadesh. But Huzi refused his offer because his main goal was to save the kidnapped children and destroy Hadesh. Hearing this, Qurayshij finally got angry. Which at that time he ordered Tetsumaku to face Huzi, who at that time Tetsumaku had just killed the prisoner yesterday. Finally there was a fight between Huzi and Tetsumaku, who was predicted to be the toughest and unbeatable. Of the many moves launched by Tetsumaku, all of them could be deflected and reversed by Huzi. This is where Huzi's ability was seen, who easily took down and defeated Tetsumaku, who was as big as an elephant. Apparently it wasn't over, because in 2 days Huzi had to face another great fighter who was called the Crazy Monkey. After the fight, Echo met Huzi in his room. At that time he asked Huzi why Huzi wanted to destroy Hadesh. Huzi also said that as Amano's biological son, Echo should have known about his father's evil plan. However, Huzi believed that one day Echo would understand and comprehend what really happened. The next day, Qurayshij spread false news to the local residents that Huzi, as a kung fu fighter, had been defeated by Tetsumaku. Echo, who also knew about it, was very disappointed with Qurayshij. But Echo could not do anything. Huzi remembered the secret passage he had passed through before. So by going through that path, Huzi visited his younger brother, who was currently in a room in a different place. Several Hadesh members took 3 prisoners to be offered to the Crazy Monkey. Then Qurayshij invited Huzi back to talk face to face while drinking oolong tea. Huzi again offered Huzi to join Hadesh and build Hadesh together. But again Huzi refused and said that what Hadesh had done to them was not right. Hadesh only made innocent children as paid killers for the benefit of a group of people. Qurayshij reminded Huzi not to act holy. Hadesh fighters like us are killers. Even Huzi himself had killed his own brother 12 years ago. However, Huzi replied, it was precisely because of regret that he now chose to move to the Shaolin temple and now intends to free the kidnapped children, so that the same thing does not happen to them. Outside, prisoners who had been killed by the Crazy Monkey were seen being brought out, which immediately made his friends not accept it until chaos occurred. Huzi came and tried to save his sweet black friend. But the sweet black asked to be killed because he could no longer bear the pain. Huzi also came to the sacred room of the Crazy Monkey and threatened to avenge the deaths of his friends. The night of Huzi's fight against the Crazy Monkey arrived. The Crazy Monkey looked quite tough. Even Huzi's punches and blows seemed to have no effect on the Crazy Monkey. Apart from the darkness, his wild and agile movements were enough to make Huzi have trouble. And indeed this Crazy Monkey was very anti-light. Secretly, the mortician who knew the weakness of the Crazy Monkey, who was afraid of light, secretly lit a fire. As a result of his actions, Huzi managed to kill the Crazy Monkey. News of the Crazy Monkey's defeat spread throughout mainland China. Even Amano, who was in prison, also found out about the news. This is where Echo realized that the Hadesh temple was intended for killing each other, not as he had known all along. Turning to the prisoners who were going to be sentenced to death for causing a riot yesterday, knowing that Huzi planned something to save them by meeting Qurayshij. Huzi asked to have a fight where he would fight Bill and one of his friends on the condition that if Huzi managed to win the fight, then all the prisoners who were going to be executed had to be released. Qurayshij agreed, and long story short, the fight began. It seemed that these two fighters were nothing compared to Huzi, who was the Vajra king. As a result, both were declared dead. With the death of his two friends, Qurayshij again intimidated Huzi that Huzi was a Hadesh, Huzi had previously killed his older brother and now Huzi had killed 2 of his own friends. However, we will be very surprised to know that they are both still alive. Yes, Huzi uses a technique he learned in Shaolin that can make his opponent become unconscious. With the help of the mortician who also understands martial arts, Huzi tells him that by pressing the Renzong and Fengqi nerve points, they will regain consciousness. As a result, the 2 soldiers regain consciousness and all the prisoners who were to be executed were successfully saved with the plan that Huzi had arranged. That night, Huzi met the sleeping children. Huzi was very worried about the condition of Hadesh, which was very scary for innocent children. Huzi then woke up Qin Kong and promised to get his brother out of the Hadesh temple. On the other hand, Echo, who is currently with Qurayshij, asks him not to fight Huzi, but Qurayshij ignores him and will continue to fight for his pride and Hadesh's good name. At the same time, the mortician comes to the prisoner and gives a paper containing instructions for escape. But his actions were successfully discovered by Hadesh's troops. Qurayshij, who currently knows the mortician's actions, then punishes him, while tightening security at the place. At that time, Amano turned out to have issued a news to Qurayshij to kill anyone who was a threat to the Hadesh temple, including Huzi and the children there. Echo, who turned out to have known this, then told Huzi to immediately leave the Hadesh temple, but Huzi refused because his arrival was to save the children and end the cruelty in the Hadesh temple. On the day of Huzi's fight against Qurayshij, the prisoners who managed to hide Huzi's message paper finally rebelled after learning that the children there were killed. So they were united with one mission, namely to save the children. Apparently Echo also tried to save all the children, but unfortunately he also became a victim. Before he died, Echo told Bill to promise to save all the children in that place. While outside, Huzi prepared to fight Qurayshij, and the fight began. With heavy rain they fought with the same moves, with almost the same abilities, because Qurayshij was the second strongest student after Huzi. At first Huzi received a severe blow from Qurayshij. But after seeing the mortician, who turned out to be his brother who was still alive, he got up and issued a 17-second punch move that Shaolin taught him. While the prisoners fought against the Hadesh members until they came out, that's when the effects of Huzi's punches began to react and Qurayshij died. After Qurayshij's death, the Hadesh members who were there surrendered by declaring their defeat and admitting who the real Vajra king was. After the victory, the children were successfully saved. Even though they lost Echo and several of his friends, Huzi was quite satisfied because Hadesh had been destroyed. Besides that, one thing that made him happy was that Huzi met his brother again, who had been thought to have died by Huzi in the past. And the end. Okay, my friend, that's the storyline of the film Ratch of Vajra. Hopefully entertained. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video.